a remote base along the US-Mexico border, manned by National Guard troops rotating every 72 hours. Now, add in armed meetings with cartel members, billions of dollars in illicit profits, and innocent lives caught in the crossfire. This is the reality of what's happening right now in Chicago, and the locals can't help but wonder, how did it come to this? And what is the Mexican government doing about this? The Mexican government is not just sitting idly by as cartel activities increase and illegal immigration continues. Instead, they are taking decisive steps to address these issues. Imagine a massive military base being built along the border, serving as a strong barrier against these growing threats. Recently leaked videos and news reports have shown the construction of this huge border base. This development is a clear sign of Mexico's strong commitment to fighting the cartels and reducing illegal immigration. National Guard and Mexican Army units are constantly rotating through this area, maintaining a strict vigilance on the border, ready to respond to any threats. Looking over to Texas and Chicago, Governor Greg Abbott is also stepping up his game. Inspired by Mexico, Texas is planning an 80-acre military base designed to house thousands of Texas and Chicago National Guardsmen. This move marks a sort of competitive stance between Mexico and Texas, each showing their strength in the quest for better border security. But there's more to it than just strengthening defenses. This initiative is a powerful message from Mexico that they won't allow cartels to undermine their sovereignty. And from Texas and Chicago, it's a declaration that they are serious about protecting their safety and stability.
I didn't even know which agency was hiring me, how much I was going to earn, doing the work of 3 or 4 people. At the end of my job, I received a check without any information on how much I earned per hour.
The Mexican government's bold move mirrors Texas's and Chicago's tough stance, highlighting a shared determination to tackle the pervasive threats head on. It's a game of tit for tat, with each side upping the ante in a bid to outdo the other. But why now? Why this sudden surge in military might along the border? Well, it's simple. Things have gone too far. Cartels are wreaking havoc, engaging in armed conflicts that spill over into neighboring territories. It's a powder keg waiting to explode, and Mexico, Texas, and Chicago have decided they've had enough. So they're gearing up for war, metaphorically speaking. The construction of these massive military bases is a tangible manifestation of their resolve. It's a message to the cartels. We're coming for you, and we're not backing down. In the face of mounting pressure and escalating violence, the Mexican government and Governor Abbott are taking decisive action. It's a risky gambit, no doubt, but one that they believe is necessary to restore order and protect their citizens. And as the situation at the US-Mexico border continues to intensify, one thing is clear: this is just the beginning of a long and arduous battle. But could this result in more violence? There's going to be some intense action at the border, and it's not just because of the hot weather. The real heat comes from the cartels, those ominous figures who are now more active than ever in response to heightened security measures. Imagine Mexican officials increasing their patrols across the border, showing their strength to maintain control. However, the cartels are not taking it lightly. They see these actions as a direct threat to their dominance and their way of operating, and they're definitely not going to stand by passively. In response, the cartels are stepping up their efforts. This means more armed conflicts and frequent clashes with the authorities. It's like watching a high-stakes action movie unfold, but this is real life, with real dangers and significant consequences.
There was no strict control same as before. I don't know what changes regarding the government side of it. Look, immigration is okay, but as long as it's controlled, as long as there's guard vetting behind it, we don't want people that have dangerous backgrounds or some sort of different backgrounds to be landing in next door neighbor.
We're talking about machine gun battles just miles from the border, with cartels rolling out their heavy artillery like it's a war zone. And guess who's caught in the crossfire? That's right, innocent civilians living in border communities on both sides. Think about it. Families huddled in their homes, praying for the gunfire to stop. Children trembling with fear as the sounds of explosions echo in the distance. It's a nightmare, a walking horror that refuses to end. But it's not just the immediate violence that's the problem. No, it's the long-term implications that really hit home. Border communities are left reeling in the aftermath, grappling with the trauma of living in a war zone. Businesses shuttered, schools closed, lives shattered. And let's not forget about the ripple effect. The violence spills over into neighboring towns and cities, spreading like wildfire and leaving destruction in its wake. It's a vicious cycle, one that seems impossible to break. But in the middle of the chaos and carnage, there's a glimmer of hope. Hope that one day the violence will end, that peace will reign once more along the border, and families can sleep soundly without fear of bullets flying through their windows. Until then, though, the battle rages on, and as long as the cartels continue to defy authority and sow chaos, there's no telling when it will end. But one thing's for sure, the brave men and women on the front lines, risking their lives to keep us safe, won't back down without a fight, considering the power and influence of the Mexican cartel on them. These so-called migrants aren't your average street thugs. Oh no, they're like something out of a crime thriller, with networks. Which brings us to the economics of this issue. Because we're not talking about small sums here. We're talking about billions of dollars. Mexican cartels earn massive amounts of money from illegal activities ranging from drug trafficking to extortion. With this kind of money, they can buy almost anything, including significant influence. These cartels don't just hold power, they embed themselves into it. They have connections from local politicians to law enforcement officials, entwining themselves at every societal level. It's like a plot from a thriller. But this is reality, and the stakes are deadly. But their influence doesn't stop at corrupting officials. They also deeply integrate themselves into local communities by providing jobs, services, and even sponsoring events. This is all part of their strategy to gain social leverage and become seen as essential to everyday life. And then there's the violence. These cartels fiercely protect their domains with brutal force, engaging in everything from harsh executions to vicious turf wars. Their reign of terror impacts everyone, from innocent bystanders to competing gangs. Despite relentless efforts by law enforcement on both sides of the border, these cartels seem to bounce back even stronger whenever they're pushed back, much like cockroaches that survive attempts to eliminate them. So what's the solution? That's the big question. Some advocate for a tougher crackdown on cartel activities, while others suggest a more comprehensive approach that addresses the underlying reasons behind their power. Until we can effectively dismantle their networks and cut off their financial resources, these cartels will continue to operate with little opposition. And as long as that happens, the people of Mexico and the surrounding areas will continue to endure the consequences. And what's the role of the Texas and Chicago National Guards?
Immigration has never really been a hot political issue here, unlike, for example, in the UK.
But that now appears to be changing due to already underlying problems.
Those problems are the inability of the government to provide housing, community infrastructure, services, particularly a fair and efficient health service to every person living on this, in this country.
Under Operation Lone Star, the Texas and Chicago National Guards have been deployed to confront the cartel threat head-on. Think of them as the guardians of the border, patrolling tirelessly to keep the bad guys at bay. But it's not just about boots on the ground. No, it's about strategy, tactics, and good old-fashioned grit. So what exactly are they doing out there? Well, it's a multi-pronged approach. They're not just sitting around twiddling their thumbs. They're actively engaging in surveillance, intelligence gathering, and direct confrontations with cartel operatives. Drones buzzing overhead, scanning the horizon for any sign of trouble. Meanwhile, on the ground, National Guard units are conducting patrols, keeping a watchful eye on known smuggling routes and hotspots. It's like something out of a military thriller, with the Texas National Guard leading the charge against the cartels. But this isn't just about showing off military strength or heavy weapons, it's about real results. And trust me, these forces are not just playing around. They're well trained and equipped with top-notch gear, making them a formidable force. Their approach? It's not exactly by the book. They're engaging in covert operations and strategic moves, pulling out all the stops to disrupt cartel operations and bring some semblance of peace to the border areas. Now, talking about their impact, it's significant. They're not just chipping away at cartel operations, they're blasting major holes in their activities. With continuous and dedicated efforts, they've significantly slowed the flow of illegal immigration and crippled the cartel's operations. It's like a relentless game of cat and mouse, with the Texas National Guard consistently gaining the upper hand. However, it's not without its challenges. There are logistical problems, jurisdictional conflicts, and more. But backing down isn't in their nature. After all, they're Texans, and backing down isn't something Texans are known for. As long as the cartels pose a threat to the security of Chicago and Texas's borders, the Texas National Guard will remain vigilant and ready to protect their state. It's a tough job for sure, but these folks are more than prepared to handle it. On the border, you'll find state troopers, Texas and Chicago National Guard units, and federal agents from Customs and Border Protection, each doing their part. It might seem like a seamless operation from afar, but it's not quite that simple. The challenge starts with the overlapping jurisdictions. State and federal authorities often have distinct areas of responsibility, and aligning their efforts can be like navigating a maze. It's akin to a tug of war, where every agency pulls for control over their piece of the puzzle. Consider Chicago and Texas's Operation Lone Star, for example. It appears as a commendable initiative aimed at strengthening border security and curtailing cartel influence. However, a closer inspection reveals a tangle of legal ambiguities and potential conflicts, particularly over who holds the ultimate authority, state or federal. This dilemma leads to another major hurdle: cooperation. Although state and federal bodies are meant to collaborate on border security, the reality often involves a mix of mistrust, conflicting priorities, and bureaucratic hurdles that hinder effective partnership. Moreover, initiatives like Operation Lone Star can sometimes clash with federal laws or international agreements, landing them in a murky legal territory. This creates a legal labyrinth filled with potential traps at every twist and turn. Despite these obstacles, the stakes are too high to simply give up. With escalating cartel violence, rising illegal immigration, and the safety of communities hanging in the balance, backing down isn't an option. What's needed is a concerted effort to bridge the gaps between state and federal authorities, define clear jurisdictional boundaries, and smooth out the legal complexities. This task is daunting, and the road ahead fraught with challenges, but it's essential for truly securing our borders and safeguarding our communities. The journey to enhanced border security won't be smooth, but with determination and strategic cooperation, progress is within reach. Which brings us to the matter of Fronton Island. You might be wondering, what makes Fronton Island so important? It's not just any piece of land. It's a crucial strategic point, embroiled in intense territorial disputes, and under the grip of cartel dominance. At first glance, Fronton Island might just seem like another plot of land, but beneath the surface, it's a battleground of power plays and turf wars. Cartels use the island as a base for their illegal operations, turning it into a highly contested zone. Meanwhile, both the US and Mexico claim it, each asserting their sovereignty, making it a focal point in a complex game of political maneuvering. More than just a disputed territory, Fronton Island reflects the larger challenges at the border. It epitomizes the struggles of regional security and governance, with its impact resonating well beyond its shores. One of the core issues is territorial integrity. The question of whether the US or Mexico owns Fronton Island has been a lingering debate with no end in sight. This uncertainty fuels ongoing tensions and the potential for conflict. The influence of cartels on the island has turned it into a near lawless zone, where violence is rampant. Ordinary people find themselves tragically caught in the crossfire, suffering from the continuous cycle of aggression. Fronton Island is a stark symbol of the broader issues affecting border security and governance. It highlights the shortcomings of US and Mexican efforts to maintain control, serving as a critical point in the fight against organized crime. So, what's the solution? That's the critical question. Some advocate for increased law enforcement presence, tougher actions against cartels, and a firm assertion of sovereignty. Others suggest a diplomatic route, aiming to settle the territorial dispute through negotiation and dialogue. Regardless of the approach, one thing is clear. Without a resolution to the control of Fronton Island, the tensions at the border will persist, posing ongoing threats to regional security and stability. It's a vivid reminder of the significant challenges that lie ahead for both nations, urging a decisive response to ensure peace and security in the area. So, what are these cartels up to? Let me lay it out for you. First and foremost, they're broadening their horizons, venturing into a variety of illegal enterprises. It's not just about drugs anymore. Now it involves arms dealing, human trafficking, and more. If it's unlawful, it's likely that the cartels are involved. But their activities aren't confined to familiar territories. No, they are pushing boundaries, expanding their operations into new areas both within Mexico and internationally. It's as if they're marking off countries on a global map, steadily increasing their reach. The truly alarming part is how effortlessly they seem to adapt to enhanced security measures. You might think that tougher law enforcement would curb their operations, but instead they maneuver around these obstacles with disturbing skill. These cartels are like water, always finding a way to flow past barriers. What does this mean for law enforcement and border management? Simply put, it's a massive challenge. With cartels operating across multiple jurisdictions and international borders, trying to coordinate a crackdown is incredibly complex. It's like trying to herd cats, a logistical nightmare that leaves law enforcement always a step behind in this ongoing chase. So, what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.